Slight vintagey mold smell and those harsh overhead lights, and you know you walked into a thrift heaven. Hi, my name is Sarah and I talk about sustainability here. If that's something you might find interesting, make sure to subscribe. Today we get to talk about the land of the secondhand, aka thrift stores, and we're going to try to answer two snazzy questions. First, why do people shop at thrift stores? And second, should you thrift if you have money to buy new clothes? Do you have any burning questions or responses already? Make sure to comment them down below. But before we get into the thick of today's video, we have to make sure we get some definitions straight. Thrift stores, also known as charity shops or op shops, are places where people will bring their old items that they don't want anymore and donate them or give them away for free, and then the stores turn around and sell those items for low prices. Some common thrift stores in the US are Goodwill and Savers. We will not be talking about consignment stores today, such as Buffalo Exchange or Crossroads, where people bring in clothing and get store credit or cash back for their items. We also won't be talking about vintage or secondhand stores, where the items are usually curated and sold for a profit. These definitions are very, very important because of the different consumer segments and the different purposes of these types of stores. Now that we've gotten our definitions squared away, we can go into our main questions. And I did some research and interviewed a couple of people for this video, and they gave me three main reasons why the people with disposable incomes should not thrift and only buy new. These three kind of arguments boil down to: 1. Thrift stores have the purpose of selling gently used goods to lower income folks. 2. Prices at thrift stores are rising because of higher income shoppers. And 3. Quality of items at thrift stores are decreasing. Let's back up a little bit. What is the purpose of a thrift store? There's a long-standing myth that when people donate their items to thrift stores, these items go directly to those in need, but the model does not work like that. Let's take two examples of big thrift chains in the US, Goodwill and Savers. Looking back to Goodwill, that I've actually made a whole video on if you're curious, its purpose is to use the profits that it makes selling items and use that toward its job training programs because it's a registered nonprofit. Savers, on the other hand, is a for-profit thrift store, and its focus is reselling and recycling, giving communities a smart way to shop and keep more than 700 million pounds of used goods from landfills each year. Have thrift stores always operated this way? Let's take a second to go back in time and learn a little bit about American thrift history. Thrift stores are a more recent type of business model, historically speaking, because before planned obsolescence, which is just a fancy way of saying that things are designed to be replaced. Don't get me started on planned obsolescence. Ugh. Before planned obsolescence, items lasted a pretty long time, and when they finally reached the end of their life as one thing, they were often reused and crafted, DIY'd, if you could say, into something new. Around the turn of the 19th century, when more immigrants were coming to the United States, Jewish women in particular were barred from a lot of economic opportunities in the mainstream economy, and so some of them started their own markets in the secondhand market. This anti-Semitism partly explains why secondhand markets faced and still face some negative stigmas. Thrift stores also have a place in LGBTQ+ history as a vehicle to go beyond normative boundaries of gender and sexual identification, according to Jennifer Lizotte in her book Goodwill to Grunge. Lizotte describes how in the 60s and 70s a lot of queer and gender non-conforming folk chose to shop at thrift stores because there was a lot less gender divisions in the clothing selection, and there was an absence of gender or sexuality-based marketing tactics that you would find in the traditional retail environment. She also described how the camp aesthetic, which is most recently seen at the Met Gala, was crafted from mostly, if not exclusively, secondhand goods. P.S. If you have an opinion on the Met Gala, make sure to comment that down below. So when I read statements like, on a larger scale, you're taking advantage of something that wasn't really created to benefit you, I understand the sentiment, but it's honestly just not accurate. There's no key demographic that thrift stores were created to sell to. But Sarah, even if their stores weren't exclusively made to sell to lower income folks, isn't that who really shops there? And if not, who is shopping and why? The economic sociologist Shelley Stewart actually tried to answer this question using observational and interview-based research methods. She found that there are two types of shoppers: thrift seekers and creativists. Thrift seekers define their goal of emulating more expensive consumption habits that were economically out of their reach, whereas creativists see thrift stores as an act of rebellion against traditional options. And she concluded that thrift seekers are being priced out a little bit by creativists, but it's really important to note that the study was in Portland, and you can only extrapolate this finding to other cities of the same demographic makeup. In the limited research available on this topic, there are kind of four main reasons why people thrift shop, and it is economic, recreational, ethical and fashionable. But it's important to keep in note that most of this research is done on middle-class demographics. An interesting article I read from Vox was actually from the perspective of a woman who says she's been facing economic hardships, and she says that, quote, higher income folks actually form a really important part of the secondhand economy because they're willing to pay much more than she can afford for a nice antique dresser or a designer suit, just as long as they're getting a deal. Thrift stores take advantage of this to increase their profits, and that's actually a very good thing. It allows the stores to pay their overhead and still sell her children's socks for a quarter. Although she is one account, I think it's so much more important to take into account the actual opinions and thoughts of lower income people instead of just trying to extrapolate what you think that they would think, which is what a lot of the articles against thrifting do. Continuing on to the second main argument against thrifting, prices at thrift stores are rising because of higher income shoppers. And when trying to answer this question, I can't really speak for the entire thrift economy because there are so many variables at play, but in my own personal opinion, as a veteran thrift shopper of 10 years, yes, I deserve an award. I don't think that prices have gone up too much, and it really just depends on where you go. Prices, I think, at Goodwill have increased more than prices at other thrift stores. But from the perspective of an even more seasoned thrift queen, I asked my stepmom Velma her experience, and she's been thrifting for over 50 years. Velma started thrifting as a kid in a family of 7 out of necessity, but really grew to love thrift shopping so much that now she says that she goes almost every single day. And when I asked her takes on the common arguments, she said that she definitely hasn't seen a price increase in the time that she's been in the area that she's been in. But she did notice that certain thrift stores are more expensive because of the demographics of the neighborhoods that they serve. And to our third reason, that quality of items at thrift stores are decreasing. Again, this is a pretty subjective question, but if we really walk it through, the increase in donations brought on by Marie Kondo's tidying up should, in theory, bring quality up because thrift stores can be more picky about the items that they put onto the floor. And back to our expert Velma, she said that she's been seeing an increase in quality because people are more environmentally conscious and don't want to just throw clothes in the landfill and would rather donate it. I would say that anyone who's been to a thrift store lately has noticed that a lot of the clothes are fast fashion, but I think that's more a reflection of how the traditional retail environment goes and then trickles down to the secondhand market than of the secondhand market itself. Another factor at play is that people could be using those resale apps instead of donating, which would decrease the quality. Overall, there's too many factors at play to really understand if the quality is decreasing, but in general, I don't think that this is a valid critique. My opinion, the best part of every video. I'm kidding, I'm not that important. My opinion is that the secondhand economy is integral to mitigating our climate crisis. According to ThreadUp, if everyone bought one used item instead of new, 5.7 billion pounds of CO2 emissions would be saved, equivalent to 500,000 cars off the road for a year. In general, I do support anyone from any income level shopping secondhand, but I do worry about the price increases and the accessibility of people who do shop for necessity. But I think that that can be remedied by thrift stores agreeing that they should not increase their prices because they know that lower income people are relying on them. Because a lot of thrift stores operate on this nonprofit model, it really just doesn't make sense to me that they would increase their prices so much to where like a core part of their consumer and people who rely on them would not be able to use these products if they're really a good, benevolent nonprofit as they seem. One thing that I would love to see is just more cause-based thrift stores. So like Fashion Revolution, where's your thrift store? That'd be so cool. Or just like animal rights things, like just more thrift stores of different causes I think would be amazing to see. The secondhand economy is booming and I cannot really explain the intricacies of all of this in one video, but I think you might have noticed, but I haven't been posting a lot of thrift hauls lately, and that's kind of because I haven't bought a lot of things, but I also just prefer making analysis videos and not just pushing consumption down your throats, even if it is secondhand consumption. So what are your thoughts and experiences about thrift stores? I'd love to know, and make sure to leave it in the comments along with your main takeaway from this video. And if anything I said seemed funky or you just want some clarification, I'm more than happy to do that. So thank you friends for watching, and I will see you next week.